Yeah.
Peace, peace. What's your appellation?
Oh, Bradley Bay.
Sorry?
Bradley Bay.
Bradley. All right. Islam, brother.
Islam.
Islam. You been keeping up with the classes at all?
I was my first class was the last one. I was the one that was asking about what this class was gonna be about.
Okay. Cool. So we right on time. So you probably so you got that much. Let me turn this music off for now. So we're gonna get started. So yeah, thank you guys. For those who already know, make sure you turn off your mic and your video so that we can try to save the bandwidth and everything and keep everything moving smooth. Islam. But this is the Friday class. This is September 2nd, 2016, Christian calendar year. So for the record, we're just going to get started. All right. So again, I'm New Najee. This is, at themoors.com. Like I said, we, for housekeeping purposes, like to do this each and every Friday. Trying, to make it a more inviting environment for those who are just coming in, to allow everybody to kind of get on the same page, like I've said before. So today we're supposed to be going over the name and judicial proclamations, which can be found, copies of which can be found on rvbaypublications.com, and other places such as Moorish Public Records, so on and so forth, as well as moorishdirectory.com. But I'm going to go to RVBay right quick and just download a quick copy so I can look at the same version that you guys should have. And if you were following us from previous classes, you guys should already be linked in with Active Moors and everything, and you'll see the homework in the reference section or under the brainstorm tab, and that would give you that information so that you can stay abreast of everything, going forward. Welcome. So we got new people coming in. So yeah, just save the bandwidth. If you would just cut your mic and your camera off for me, brother. That'll keep everything smooth. All right. All right, he just jumped back out. I guess you know how to fix it. All right, so I guess some people get intimidated. Anyway, so the legal name declaration. Let me pull this up so y'all can see. Time screen. Or rather, before I do that, let me read this intro to kind of just clear up any confusion from last class, as far as like what's going on. So, although the prohibition of America's plantation slavery remains in force, the descendants of those who suffered the lash still, nevertheless, with over 5 decades having elapsed, still endure the daily pains of state-sanctioned, bureaucratized racism, masquerading as capitalism. America's continuing, which of course we know that this is America's continuing legacy, all right, here in Al-Marak. But going forward, the intent of this treatment is simply to articulate the nature and or factual constitution of our society's present-day socialized racism and delineate the varying forms of our current cycles, micro and macro pathologies impacting on our society, while delineating with specificity the unjust individual's burden as well as our collective resulting negative consequence, i.e., disparaging conditions effectuated upon the masses by a privileged minority, morally bankrupt decision makers differentiated often only by race and their pathologies of psychosocial proclivities in the form of erroneous class destinations. So when we're talking about classism and quote-unquote racism in America, we're really talking about the disparity that is caused from a lack of birthright nationality, right? And a lack of understanding of birthright nationality. To the point that the very means of society, the very things that the society functions off of, that allows it to grow, have been stripped, from a people. when you're talking about their nationality and their birthright. The thing that allows them to be able to navigate upon this earthly plane and still be able to, find agreement with their fellow man, again, has been stripped away from them. So when we look at the social conditions of what we see today in terms of quote-unquote black people, in Al-Marak, you're looking at the result of these, focus and guided efforts, to deny a particular people of their, again, nationality and birthrights. So when we talk about the name declaration and the judicial proclamation, these are functional tools, okay, in reclaiming one's nationality and birthright and effectuating and making it clear for the record, what your position is, just in layman's terms, with the understanding of your birthright and nationality. And please believe, what we go through today is not something that you're gonna get in just watching this one time or just reading it one time. Like, you're gonna have to go through it, a few times and go over the words a few times before you really, can grasp what it is that it's talking about oftentimes. Unless, you're already familiar with the vocabulary or the verbiage, and you've already dealt with these types of things, which, of course, we know most doctors, most lawyers, most of those, your politicians, your preachers and teachers, so to speak, in the quote-unquote black community, they already know this information. You know what I mean? It's a part of their cursory training, and because there's always this unspoken, level or degree of understanding that comes with being quote unquote conscious or aware, to where you've got those who are well aware and are well versed in certain orders, and they're directly associated with their own private privy council. And these various privy councils are, at the end of the day, where they go to. It's the the well of knowledge and information that they go to be able to stay abreast of the different current situations and whatnot at the quote unquote round table, right? So that's why we as Moors make a concerted effort to allow others to know who may not know that you can organize, you can work, towards a common goal and an effort and not be criminalized at the end of the day. Because I think oftentimes when I interact with people, that there's a sense of fear that comes with knowing this information and applying it, that like the prophet said here, lead you all the way up to salvation and you'll turn around, so to speak. So, I just wanted to set that context before we really got into the name and judicial proclamation, to just put it out there and let everybody know, hey, these documents have been in force and in effect forever. The information that's in there is solid. We're talking about facts at the end of the day that have been used time and time again, you know what I mean? And they still hold true today in 2016. So without further ado, let me share the screen and jump right into it with you guys. So we can get into this. So the name, judicial proclamation. So right here at the top, you're gonna see it's talking about it's got these three symbols here. Now, one of these we should recognize. You know what I mean? This quote unquote American flag, which is really the banner of amity and commerce, right? And then you've got the press grip right here, which is supposed to represent unity, or it could have some allusion to masonry, depending on where you're coming from. And then of course the Al-Moroccan flag, which is a national flag. And this flag, of course, in some records say 10,000, but the others say 50,000 if you hit the 102s, really hard. 50,000 years over in this land, all right? So these are just the things that kind of set up the four corners of the document, all right? And that beeping in the background is people coming in and out of the room. So we'll just bear with that. But I wanted to hit on a couple of things. So when it talks about the free national name, realize that that would be your quote-unquote appellation. Of course, your straw name would be the ens legis, right, that was given to you at birth and whatnot. Typically, these ens legis are tags and labels and brands like Smith, Jones, and Johnson, associated with them. And they're often classed as family names. But we publicly deal with them as corporate instruments, not as living individuals. So when you're putting that in there, you want to make sure that that's legible and that's matching everything that is associated with that. But as far as your free national name, that and it's a lot of people ask, how do you come up with that? How do you get to that point? I recommend that people meditate, and really start studying and going into themselves. But sometimes, you can start with the name, like you said, that you've been given. And in that, if you can trace it back to something more in line with your culture and heritage, then maybe you can vibe with that or be in tune with that. But at the end of the day, it's really about where your spirit is, ends up settling on. Nobody can tell you who you are at the end of the day. Like that's why you're, making this statement duly affirmed, right? So, for the record, let's go through. Let me back up and ask, because I need to make sure I'm gonna stay on top of the room today. Are there any questions so far about the writ? Islam, brother. As you make it back, I'm gonna mute your audio out. But just open up the floor right quick. Are there any questions so far about the name declaration? Because I know we didn't go too deep into it, but I want to make sure I hit everything that you guys might have. If so, let me know in the chat, and I'll just check back. But let's get back into it. So nothing in the chat right here. All right. So because I'm not trying to read the whole thing to you guys. I'm trusting you guys to read, but I just wanted to hit some things of importance. So where it talks about, of course, the Moorish Divine National Movement, that was established first by the Prophet and then the temples, okay? And we know that partly because it's historical record, but, of course, you could always, I'm trying to see if it's in this book. Pardon me. Trying to see if it's in here. No, I don't think it's in this one. I was just looking at it. Anyway, so you guys who study, you can go through and get the timeline and check that out on your own. But I want to make sure, like I said, certain words are understood. And I know I didn't give everybody everything in terms of the language to go over, but I'm going to hit those words first. Let me bring it back out. I'm going to hit the words first that I assigned for the homework, just to stay clear. All right. So for the homework, I assigned in full life, in purpose persona, and sui juris. So first we'll look up in full life. All right. Because you guys, y'all can read that writ for y'allself. Y'all heard it a million times. Islam, brother, I'm gonna go and mute you out, and if you would just close your video for right now until we open the floor, just to save the bandwidth. Islam.
Okay, I can. It's an option to close it.
Yeah, it should be like a little video button.
Okay.
All right, there we go. All right, so in full life. So in full life. And the reason why I picked these particular 3 words, and I was going to give y'all more, but I didn't really, want to inundate y'all with too much work, and you guys really not be thinking about what it is that you're looking at. So I try to keep it as short as possible. But in full life, in full, which it may not even be in the fourth. I haven't even looked, but I know it's in the definition of in pro persona. But let's see if full life is in here, because I'm looking at in full life. I don't see it. Full future fusion. And the reason why I'm doing this is to show how quickly you could pick up this information if you get the right tools. And again, I'm looking at a Black's Law 4th edition for you guys. Full blood, full covenant, full defense. I don't see full life. Huh. So I guess we'll have to go to the good old regular dictionary. But let's look up in pro persona, because I know that's in here. And I know that's going to speak to in full life. Like I said, so in pro persona. Any questions while I'm looking this up? Y'all just let me know in the chat. Right below should be a little bubble on the right hand side. So anyway, in pro persona basically just means in one's own proper person. When you're dealing with law, you're dealing with status, realize that they've got you in a colorable position, right? They've got you in a position where you don't even exist at law. You're nobody, all right? You're no different than a piece of tissue, right? But because of your signature, right, on the documents that they will push to you. Yeah, y'all give me the definition in the chat if y'all can get to it before I pull it up. Cause I can just keep flipping, and I'm thinking about other stuff right now. But when you're dealing with Plenus Victor, yep. When you're dealing with, all right, I'm gonna look that one up. When you're dealing with your status, realize that it really is what it is because you say it is, or because your actions, say that that's what it is. So oftentimes, most cost-effective way to get a Black's Law dictionary is probably, eBay or Amazon. They usually have some pretty cheap. But if you get with some Actimores, they should have some links to some info for you. Shouts out to all my 720 Moors out there doing their thing. So we got a question on the floor. Yeah, no worries. So random question. All right. Pledges. Now, this is interesting. Pledges. Now, this is just as I'm looking for something. Here we go. Plebiscite. That was another word I was looking for. In pleading, those persons who became sureties for the prosecution of a suit, their names were anciently appended to the foot of the declaration. So the bottom, right? So pay attention to where they place the names or the appellation on the document. In time, it became purely a formal matter because the plaintiff was no longer liable to be immersed for a false claim, and the fictitious persons, John Doe or Richard Roe, became the universal pledges, or they might be omitted altogether or inserted at any time before judgment. They are now omitted. So oftentimes when you come in, they don't have any evidence against you most of the time. Most of the time they're trying to get you to make a plea bargain or a plea deal to admit some wrongdoing that may or may not have even happened, right? But depending on where you are with your knowledge, you know, will depend on how you respond in that situation. And, you know, whether or not you know how to live within contracts will, you know, depend on how you act on that situation, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to realize that everything that is being said or done, right, because of, you know, the level of technology that we're at right now, is for the record, okay? If you don't keep that in mind, then you are liable to fall off of your square and not, you know, not be able to keep up with things. And they will constantly throw you into the loop, so to speak. And there will be plunder, right? Which the verb plunder, to take property from persons or places by open force, right? They're openly doing this. They're not hiding it. And this may be in course of a lawful war. Peep the records. You know, they declared war on you Moors times and times over, or by unlawful hostility. And we already know that these hostilities are unconstitutional. As in the case of pirates or banditti, the term is also used to express the idea of taking property from a person or place without just right, but not expressing the nature or quality of the wrong done. So what is it that often happens when you see these quote-unquote videos, right? They're plundering these people because they don't even offer an explanation as to what's going on, right? Or why. But I'm not seeing Plaintiff's video in here, so I'm just going to look it up, you know, how we do. Based on the dictionary. So now this is an interesting little site that just came up. Yeah, I need something a little bit more direct and to the point, though. I'm trying to look up this word for you guys. But yeah, you know, getting back to status, they will often get people confused and will throw you out of the courtrooms or the tribunals, you know, because you start getting things right. Okay? So oftentimes, you know, when Moors are actually standing on their square and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will empty the courtrooms. Why? Because they don't want, I think it means in full life. I think it means in full life, if I'm not mistaken, Plaintiff's Victor. Islam, thank you for that reminder. But they will try to clear the courtroom. Why? Because they don't want any record, right? They don't want anybody to realize what's going on. They don't want any record of you coming there, being there, and leaving any kind of impression. Because if you do, then it sets what? Precedence. And that precedence can be considered what? Legal case law for that jurisdiction or that area. Right? Within that district. And they try to, you know, play this fine line of not allowing Moorish documents that have any true effect or force of making it into the record publicly, right? And they'll always, you know, try to wash things out on the back end or using some post-adjudication extrajudicial nonsense, all right, that they made up and literally pulled out of their, you know, their heinies, and then they'll run it on you just to see where you're at. So if you're not aware, if you're not paying attention to, you know, your surroundings and to what the rules of the game are, right? Not what you think they are, but what the rules of the game really are. Like what is their job title for real, you know? And can they produce documented literature to that end, all right? Otherwise, there's an insufficiency of evidence to support the verdict that they're trying to, you know, judge and rule against you. So in this case, This means this phrase in a motion for a new trial means that there is some evidence, but not enough in light of the evidence to the contrary to support a verdict. It means that there is no evidence which ought reasonably to satisfy the jury. That fact to be proved is established. All right. So, going back, insufficiency. Right? When they talk about an insufficiency of pleading, oftentimes they'll try to throw the stuff out because they'll say it's an insufficient, quote-unquote, pleading. But we have to, again, be cognizant and aware that these are writs. These aren't motions, which can be denied. But they'll often say that it's insufficient. So insufficient, not sufficient, inadequate to some need, purpose, or use. But whose use? Whose purpose? Whose need is it insufficient for? Is it insufficient for their need or use, or is it insufficient for your need or use? Right? Just keep that in mind. Wanting in needful value, ability, or fitness, incompetent, unfit as insufficient food. Insufficient means it is the antonym of sufficient. Insufficiency in equity pleading, the legal inadequacy of an answer in equity which does not fully and specifically reply to some one or more of the material allegations, charges, or interrogatories set forth in the bill, right? Because oftentimes, if you do a writ and you're not very specific as to your facts and who did what, when, why, and how, then that can weaken your position or your argument, right? So I'm kind of giving background information and support to what happens once you understand what this name declaration, this judicial proclamation is really for, right? Because if you remember from the previous classes, when we went over AA 222141, realize that along with executive order, let me see if I've got it pulled up. I try to have everything pulled up for you guys. Executive order 13107. Did you just mute yourself out for me? Let me try to show this to you guys right quick, because this is one of the documents, right? Executive order 13107, right? December 10th, 1998 was when it was really authored. And I'm just going to read this first little area right here, and then this first section 1 right here. It says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution, the laws of the United States of America, and bearing in mind the obligations of the United States pursuant to the International Covenant and Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR for short, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, CAT, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, CERD, and other relevant treaties concerned with the protection and promotion of human rights to which the United States is now or may become a party in the future, it is hereby ordered as follows, right? So they named separate conventions that led up to this particular treaty, right? And of course, all y'all who study, go back and look these up, right? The United States, and realize that these are obligations, right? These are obligations, which are binding. Just for the record, I want to hit that word for you guys. But Section 1 says right here, it says, implementation of human rights obligations. A, it shall be the policy and practice of the government of the United States being committed to the protection and promotion of human rights and fundamental freedoms, fully to respect and implement its obligations, meaning it's in force, right? It's working. Its obligations under the international human rights treaties to which it is a party, including the ICCPR, the CAT, and the CERD, which it was talking about at the beginning part, right? So when it's talking about obligations, right? Obligations, take care of your obligations, take care of your responsibilities, right? Now, obligations in here, 4th edition is pretty long. But let's jump down to absolute obligation, right? One which gives no alternative to the obliger, but requires fulfillment according to the engagement, right? An engagement. So what's an engagement? Engagement could be a contract, couldn't it? Right? Peace, Moors, Islam. An engagement could be an oral agreement between parties who are similarly situated or aware of each other. I'm just trying to look it up right quick. Engagement in French law, right? Black's Law 4th edition, page 622, if you've got it. In French law, a contract, the obligation arising from a quasi-contract, the terms quote-unquote obligation, quote-unquote engagement, are said to be synonymous. But the code seems specially to apply the term quote-unquote engagement to those obligations which the law imposes on man without the intervention of any contract, either on the part of the obliger or the obligee. An engagement to do or omit to do something amounts to a promise. So that's why I said it could be verbal, right? So whether or not it's on paper, an obligation is something that you have to own up to. You have to take care of. That's part of your responsibility. So when we talk about protection of human rights, right? Preventative and after the fact, right? We're talking about certain actions that have to take place. Certain things that have to be in place and enforced so that other things can be in place and enforced, so that other things can be in place and enforced, so that rights can be respected across the board. All right? But if certain institutions, and certain black leader guys don't share that information that's public knowledge with the people, then the people suffer, right? So when we talk about this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right, and I'm just reading out of the Truth About Your Birthrights Resurgence Edition, shout out to rvbankpublications.com. Right here, just in the preamble, I just want to read a couple of things, and I just want, hopefully for the record, it'll sink in for some people, right? Preamble. Whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world, right? So it's inherent, right? It's inherent. So we're going to look that up, right? Just a quick Google, in toward to stick. Let me share this with you guys so y'all can see just how I'm just running through it real quick. I just want to make sure I get this on the record. All right. So inherent, because people, again, they like to make it difficult. Inherent, it's an adjective, right? Coming out of Latin, means in or toward, to stick, inhere, sticking to, late 16th century, right? Then you go to the definition, but let's see, just for law, vested in, so someone as a right or privilege, So if there's a legal definition, that means it should be in the Black's Law, right? Should be in here. Let's see. Let's see right quick. Because again, we have to keep in mind more is that these words don't have just a colloquial, everyday meaning. They also have a legal meaning. Right? We have certain rights that are inalienable. They're inherent. They reside within you before, during, and after, your birth and death. Right? Inherently dangerous. Inherent. So an inheritance, right? Or to inherit, following on the same lines of the etymology, to take by inheritance, to take as heir on death of an ancestor, to take by descent from ancestor to take or receive as right or title by law from ancestor at his decease, to inherit to a person in his common expression in the books. The word also, is a popular sense, is equivalent of to take or to receive, right? So we're talking about having an inherent right. You take it automatically. That's something that you have automatically. When you're talking about your birthrights, the only reason that we're having to go through this process is because we've been enslaved and stripped of our birthrights, right? But when you look at Resolution 75, right, so I'll pull that up right quick, which you can check that out on RV Bay Publications as well. But I'm going to pull it up from there, actually. So Resolution 75 made it really plain that they already gave these rights back to us. Islam. So let's check this out. Resolution 75. And I'm going through these documents because these are really the supporting, this is really the meat and potatoes of what you need to understand the name declaration and judicial proclamations. But, I let you guys do that on your own time. That's why I assigned the reading of them for homework. So we can go to the action of these things. So 1933, Legislative Journal, House, page 5759 for the record, right? Resolution number 75. Mr. Witkin, Mr. Speaker, I desire at this time to call up Resolution 75, purchase number 1034. The resolution was read by the clerk as follows. Right? Now, this is already public record. Okay? Already public record. But you still got preacher leader guys, trying to and snake oil salesmen out here trying to play like this is some secret Rocky and Bullwinkle episode. In the House of Representatives, April 17th, 1933. All right. So Prophet passed 28, 1933. Resolution 75 comes out. Correlations. Anyway, many sons and daughters of that proud and handsome race which inspired the architecture of northern Africa and carried into Spain the influence of its artistic temperaments have become citizens of this nation. And what are they alluding to right there? The legacy of the Moors in Spain, or Al-Andalusia, right? In the city of Philadelphia, or Philadelphus, there exists a Moorish American society. So this was even in 33, there was a strong Moorish movement. Moorish American society made up of Moors who have found here the end of their quest for a home, and of the children of those who journeyed here from the plains of Morocco. This society has done much to bring about a thorough absorption by these people of those principles which are necessary to make them good American citizens. These Moorish Americans have since being here missed the use of the titles and name annexations that were so familiar at home, and which are used in accordance with the doctrines of the religious faith to which they are adherents. Therefore be it resolved that this House commends the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia for the efficient service it has rendered the nation, right, in bringing about a speedy and thorough Americanization. So Moors, right there, is telling you Moors are what can Americanize something. Because who were the original Americans? Copper tone colored people, the Al-Moroccans, the Moors, right? Moorish Americans. Of these former Moors, and see that's really a play on words here. Americanization of these former Moors, right? We know that Al-Morocco, Moor, we know that line. Anyway, they're really talking about the same people, but trying to make themselves, psychopathically and sociopathically the quote-unquote American, and trying to implant that thought into your subconscious by saying that, right? And that, in accordance with the fullest right of religious independence guaranteed every citizen, we recognize also that the right of these people to the use the name affixes il or ali or bay or any other prefixes or suffix to which they have heretofore been accustomed to use, or which they may have hereafter acquire the right to use on question whether the House adopted the resolution. It was adopted May 4th, 1933. Right? So, just again, we're not making this up when we say that Moors, for the record, have been recognized on the record for a while now. It's really nothing new. Islam. And, when you look at, Obama going to the Kupta and demonstrating what he demonstrated. And then Michelle triangulating, demonstrating what she demonstrated at the Alhambra, right? In Andalusia. Trying to tell these Moors, like Tyler says, to wake up. But we miss those small signals, and then we wait to see the tanks coming down the street, But it's like, why would you want to wait till it got to that point before you do something? Islam, when we already know that everybody has a right to a nationality, right? So, look, going back to the human rights, the Declaration of Human Rights, 1994, Article 15, number 1, everyone has the right to a nationality. And number 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Right? So when they try to tell you that you have to go get permission from some third-party corporate, wardship, overseers to get permission to correct your name, or to certify your name change and whatnot, realize that that's really just a formality. Because as Moors, we know that it's through our actions, right? It's through our display of the Moorish culture and our understanding of that science and that culture that opens the quote-unquote, doorways of negotiation and peace. It's not how much money, quote-unquote, fiat we've got. It's not necessarily the titles that we may wear or the airs that we may have about ourselves. It's the sincerity. Islam, it's the pure sincerity that gets you through those trying times when you don't quite know, what to say or what to do. It's that ever present sense of honor that you have to maintain to really stay grounded, because they'll try to get you thrown off on so many different tangents. But you got to remember, everybody has a right to a nationality. And nobody can be arbitrarily deprived of his or her right. They can't be deprived of their the right to claim that nationality or to proclaim it or to declare it, right? For it to come out of your mouth before you put it on paper, nobody can take their quote-unquote illusion of authority and attach a license or a fee to that, okay? And then try to tell you that you have to basically pay up or go into the dungeons to be yourself. Like, it doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. And the sheer foolishness of it and the villainy of it is what's so insulting at the end of the day. And, I can just, only wonder where someone would think that would be okay in a just society, but we already know that, the Romans and the Greeks really didn't have too much religion until, quote unquote, Christianity came around, and then they had some, quote unquote, sense of moral turpitude that, was able to pervade and spread around. But at the end of the day, we know that that's all ancient Gnosticism and stuff coming out the ancient mystery schools that they were dealing with, and that was really just ancient truth and wisdom, right? But they turned everybody into this chattel property, right? And so when we look at the term of chattel, coming out of the Resurgence edition, I just wanted to read this for the record to just again help it kind of sink in as to where we're at right now and why we're dealing with this name declaration, judicial proclamation, the way we deal with it, and why Moors push so hard to put it on the record before you get to making moves. Why? Because they've already assumed that you're property. So if you don't make it clear that you're not property, you know, when you go out here and try to do certain things, try to make certain activities happen that you see other active Moors doing, and you've seen others maybe fail or fall short, don't think it's because quote unquote the process doesn't work, or that the words that we're saying don't equate to what they mean. No, it means what it means. The fact is that you're dealing with criminals. Okay? If I often try to put it in people's, in as simple perspective as possible. If you've been in a house, right, that was given to you by your grandparents, and you've been staying there, for say it was the house you grew up in, all right? But let's say you have a traumatic experience at, say, around, 7 years old. And, or let's just say 10, let's round it off. At the age of 10 or whatever, you get kicked out of your birth home, and you basically get, ran off into the street. And you stay out of that home so long that, somebody else has now moved in and claimed that home is yours, right? They've taken out all your family photos, right? History, birth records, you know what I mean? Culture, society, right? Stripped all of your books, all of your accomplishments, all of your little drawings off of from kindergarten and whatnot, off of the refrigerator. All of that's gone. So there's no sign that you ever lived there, right? And then you fast forward to you getting older, and people seeing you on the street, knowing that this is your house, and this is, basically how Moors out here now are trying to wake up our people. We know that you had a house. We know that you had a home, to go to. We know that you had a family at one point, and that you forgot all of that, right? And as Moors, when we try to demonstrate the science of birthright nationality, we're trying to show you how to get back into that house. Islam. Because if you don't know who you are and what your obligations are based on who you are, and then what your rights or, privileges may be based on that inherent, position or duty, then you're going to be a lot less effective at the end of the day, because you're not going to know, the full measure of the tool belt. You know what I mean? You think you're robbing, but you really got Batman's suit on. You know what I mean? You're really riding Batmobile, but you think you're on a bicycle, right? When you're talking about nationality and birthright, and you can do all these crazy tricks and things and whatnot, but you can't do nothing if you don't know how to operate that bad boy, right? If you don't know which button to push, you might just eject yourself up out of that bad, and end up in a ditch somewhere. And that's what often happens when we come into nationality and birthright with a Negro peon mindset, because we're just looking for what benefits we can get out of it, instead of looking for what we can add value to. You know what I mean? What can we really bring to the table? Islam. So when you recognize and are aware again of who you are and what you can do, I promise you will be more effective at the end of the day. Because again, you'll know what you got on your belt, what you got in front of you in your console or whatever, which buttons to push and when. Which one is the oil slick, and which one is the jacks, so to speak, taking back the speed racer days. But shouts out to all my 80s babies. But so I don't really know, before that, because I don't even want to get into all of that. Anyway, you've really just got to know what you're dealing with. You know, I just don't want to get into a tangent anymore. You really got to know what you're dealing with. That's why I wanted to pull this up for today, right? Administrative functions. Okay? Because oftentimes we look up and we're wondering, like, all right, we're supposed to have a government, we're supposed to have this, we're supposed to have that, you know, but what's going on? You know, what's wrong? And I would proffer, you know, just in my observation, that and when you talk to different Moors, there's a lack of understanding as to how this thing came about, right? So I wanted to show this chart here. And you guys see, it says Moorish Divine National Movement, Old Canaanite Temple, Moorish Divine, you know, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Moorish Holy Science Temple of America, right? And it's got all these other departments, right? Here for the Ustream. Okay. Alright. Yep. It's long. So yeah, so let me just read this out. It says the Moorish Divine and National Movement, Old Canaanite Temple, Newark, New Jersey, right? 1913. The Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Civic Organization. Civic Organization, 1925, 1926. So then the Civic Organization, known as the Moorish, that was previously known in 1913 as the Old Canaanite Temple, and became the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, right, was then the Moorish Holy Temple, Moorish Science Temple of America, and then it was known as a religious organization, right? And then, you know, you've got certain things like the schools, the industry for the businesses, the press, which is, you know, the newspapers, you know, and then under the industry, you've got the Young Businessmen's League, Women's Auxiliary, Moorish Community Development, Civics and Law and Instructions Communications, right? And then it just says takes place amongst the affairs of men. Now, what logically does that mean? All right? If the temple was supposed to have a Young Businessmen's League, a Women's Auxiliary, a Moorish Community Development, right? These different parts of the temple were supposed to handle these various issues that we see plaguing the community, right? And let's just look to the words of the prophet to see what we're talking about here, for real. Islam, we got a question on the floor. 731. All right. Moorish Science Temple of America, Home Office 3603 Indiana Avenue. Noble Drew Ali, founder, Chicago, Illinois, January 18th, 1929. Right. And this is the message to be proclaimed at every meeting. Right. So if you know a temple that's active and they're not reading this letter, you know, you need to ask that Grand Sheik or Assistant Grand Sheik why. Like, why is this not being read? And we might be able to figure it out from just reading it. But let's see. Dear brother, Islam, I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as an American citizen, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that contribute to the movement in uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it bad. Islam, never before have I needed finance as badly as I do at present, that I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my quote-unquote fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without me, the prophet, being the head. It has been proven by my work in which I have performed in the last few months because I was at the governor's inauguration to represent the Moorish Divine and National Movement. And I will be at the inauguration of President Hoover for the same cause. Islam. So again, the Prophet mentioned the Moorish Divine National Movement. So when these temples keep hollering about, temples and temple charters and whatnot, it muddies up the water and it causes confusion because you got to realize that the temples come out of the Moorish Divine National Movement. All right. It just at the end of the day, that's what we're dealing with. Now, divine warning by the Prophet. It's a little bit longer, but I feel like I really need to get into it and read it because of, again, all of this confusion that's been going on. So I'll just read it, and then we'll go from there. So divine warning by the Prophet for the nations, the citizens of all, and realize this is supposed to be given to all. This was given to all the black leaders and all the preacher guys at the time, and they're supposed to give this to all their congregations and the masses. This information was not passed out. This wasn't given out accordingly. And there's a reason why. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. Right there, what are we talking about? We're talking about the slave labels and the brands. Smith, Jones, and Johnson, Negro, Black, and Colored, being attached to the human family to separate us, right, from our free national government and our free national constitution. Islam. And then the Prophet goes on, it says, and it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that allude to slavery, right? And they further put us in sin, with sin we know means ignorance, because, with the Rockefeller 1928, education initiative, and how they, institutionalized the dumbing down of all quote-unquote American citizens. And then later on, they tried to neutralize the movement of the quote-unquote Negroes in their resurgence or renaissance. Keeping in mind the work the Prophet did with trying to teach individuals to do for self, have their own, go back to that ancient mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, Islam. And then you see in the quote-unquote black community all of these quote-unquote black Wall Streets popping up everywhere, Rosewoods and so on and so forth. These successful communities weren't just happening because, all of a sudden we just got this influx of finance, because they were robbing and raping and pillaging these neighborhoods at will, okay? And we know because of the Christian black codes and things that are still in order today, right? That you couldn't walk on the same side of the road as a quote unquote white lady. You had to cross the road. You couldn't spit at them and whatnot. You had to give you pardons and good dues and goodbyes and all of that good stuff. And basically just support all of that cretinous foolishness that and false ideals of chivalry that we really don't we don't look for it today in the same light that it was given to us. Which was a means of control. It was a means of quote unquote civilizing, the savage beast that they were trying to classify us as. Islam. But I just wanted to read, just a few things out of divine, warning, and try to get through it, Islam, so that we have a proper context as to why we're dealing with this name and judicial proclamation at this time. So I, the Prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens, according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and by the nations of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish Divine and National Movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, right, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under a free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations, right? And I just want to pause for the cause right here to make light or make note of the fact, shed light on the fact, elections are coming up, all right? If you've been proactive, you've been getting out there, with your writs and everything, you can put, if you want to vote, and this is more debate back and forth about the vote and all the rest of this type stuff, but if you want to vote, right, in your free national name, stand on this divine warning. Stand on the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. Stand on the UN, Declaration of Human Rights. Stand on these documents and do all your new business in free national name and just see what happens. Just test it out. Make a science experiment out of it. Since you got to choose the lesser, the greater of two evils anyway. Make it a learning experience. Don't just go with the motions. Come with questions. Prepare yourself. Islam. So anyway, getting back into it. They already claim their own. So you who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, right? Not foaming at the mouth and hollering and acting goofy, but an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply. For they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money does not make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belongs to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship, by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work. I just have to reiterate that, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Why? The reason why I reiterate the missionary work, because it's divine and national movement. We're ministers and consuls, right? Notice the duality. Islam, it's a science to this. I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. All true American citizens. He's not talking to everybody that calls themselves quote-unquote American citizens. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. Because why we went from being Moors, Al-Moroccans, to Negroes, blacks and colors in the quote-unquote darkness of slavery. We were forbidden to know how to read and write at that time, Islam. And then, they implemented all kind of other stuff to just further just embed this sense of fear when it comes to education or being educational, right? Or being scholarly. Islam, that was part of the dumb down and part of the strategy, again, to keep us out of our square or sphere of power, right? We circle the square. Islam, constitutional, save my people from who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. Islam. So if these politicians are not dealing with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, Islam, they're not really dealing with the United States of America's Constitution, the free national constitution that's meant for all free national citizens. Islam, they're dealing with something else, that demon society. Islam, the demos, not the free nationals. You know, not the free national constitution that's supposed to be for all free nationals. Not what we the people established. Not the Republican form of government. Islam, and realize that there's a difference. This goes on to say, I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by what? Claiming names and principles. Names and principles that are unconstitutional. So, you know, when the prophet says most of our problems are social, why? Because in social interactions, we deal with certain social names and principles, like our cognomens, right? And the principles, thinking that we need to have a driver's license to navigate, right, on the highways and byways on our vast estate. Those principles that we have that delude to slavery. It leads you back into it. Why? Because your language, the spell that's being cast based on your language, does not equal up to the national and constitutional standards that the law has already set down. How do we know that? Because we can read it for ourselves, but you know we'll reiterate that later, you know, and get into that later. But you know, for those who got eyes to see and ears to hear, y'all already know. Islam, constitutional laws by their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If the Italians, now peep this, if the Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national names and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. And how do we know this? When they go to Ellis Island and they come in to try to, you know, be naturalized as American citizens, they have to put on the paper and tell what national government did you come from? What family of nations did you already, you know, are you detaching yourself from to now attach yourself to the quote-unquote U.S. Right? That's going to be in their citizenship form somewhere to put that information down, and they would say, all right, well, I'm a German, you know, I came from Germany, you know. I'm an Englishman, oh, I came from England, you know. All right? Hindustani brother, you know, coming from Hindustan, Islam, you know, wherever you are, you would have to put on record what nation or what family of nations you came from to then be, either have dual citizenship, which that's supposed to be, you know, that doesn't really make any sense at the end of the day. But on paper, you can have dual citizenship, so you maintain your recognition of that nation, right, and that nation's flag and everything that comes with that, along with the U.S.'s, you know, national flag and everything else that comes with that. Islam. But let's continue. So, but I make that point to say, if you know, and just going back to what the prophet is saying right here, if the Italians, Greek, the English, and the Chinese, and Japanese, and the Turks and Arabians, why not the Moroccans? Why are we so special that we're not forced, Islam, to proclaim who and where we really come from for the record by fact? Because if we were, it would unfurl the fraud. It would you know, dismantle the whole illusion of being a Negro, black, and colored at the end of the day. Islam. So in all other governments, when a man is born and raised, there and asked for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, or dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers. Every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. Right? And who the Moors trace our lineage from oftentimes? Ruth the Moabitess. And what do Masons learn? Who's the matriarch? Ruth. Right? And she's in relation to who? Solomon. And then you go deeper or whatever, and if you check out, and they show you in the movie, Angels and Demons and everything, about the supposed bloodline of Jesus, and I think they call it the Merovingian line of things, Islam. Well, you know, knowing who had feet of burnished brass and hair like lamb's wool, all right. I don't think he was a European, you know. And there's a little Copernic, you know, meme going out talking about quote unquote white people and white privilege, and I'll get into that for the record once we get done with this. But I just, you know, I go off in these tangents because I hear a lot of things, and this is my one time out of the week to really just kind of, you know, get it all off my chest. But, you know, we do what we can. So the word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. Islam, I'm just going to, you know, mute you out right quick. And if all men are declared by free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and citizens. Islam. So if you deal with the principles of the Constitution of 1774, you don't need the 14th and 15th Amendment to quote unquote free the Negro from his slavery. Why? Because the 1774 Constitution recognizes those free national standards of a free and equal society across the board. Islam. And if you just would but claim that and act on those principles, you could be more fruitful in your activities. Islam. So there is not but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem. This is the one issue that you need to use to redeem that which was lost. And that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized, prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens of my people in this government, the worst is yet to come. Because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And what do we see going on right now? all these quote-unquote diseases, these quote-unquote earthquakes and floods going on. You know, Mother Nature is not going to allow us to operate in ignorance or sin much longer, okay? And think that we're just going to keep getting away with it, all right? Because our ignorance, no matter how much we want to try to place it on the white man, at this point in 2016, we have to own up to the weight of the fact that since 1913, Noble Drew Ali has been here, right? And we've had temples all over the place, all over North America, particularly in the north, more so. And they've just been, I hate to say it, they've been city slicking the world, okay, for lack of better terms. And, you know, because, you know, when you check out the FBI records, you realize that, you know, things got muddied. You know, you've got some feds in there working at both ends of the candle. And you've got other Moors who are coming up and, you know, on both ends who really don't know what's what. We lost some jokers on that note. Shout out to them Alphabet Boys in the building. But you know, we you know, love, true, peace, freedom, and justice. You know, when any of these are violated, justice must take its course. Islam. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government, so he was administrating government here, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn. So at the end of the day, the prophet was believing and trusting and believing that we was going to find our way, right? The true and divine way of our forefathers, and learn to stop serving carnal customs, right? And merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. Why? Because, you know, with that Negropean mindset, we're thinking, oh, you know, Gucci, Versace, you know, I gotta have that. Why? Because it's got a brand label, it costs so much, and I've never had anything worth anything, you know, so I just gotta have it, you know, I need it, and when I get it, you know, I feel so much better, and then you go on to the next thing. Why? Because you've got a European sense of materialism that tells you that your self-worth is based on things of public perceived value or value to the poor man, things that are considered value to the poor man or the poorest man of heart. You know what I mean? Not necessarily fiat or morals, Islam. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine, and realize, you know, divine is a particular title that you will see in certain Masonic orders, and it was also in the Sultan was known as the Imperial Divan when you do research. So the prophet was acting as divan in his divine movement, in his missionary work. All right. Divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. Islam from the prophet. So when, you know, the prophet is talking about at the end, that it's these things that bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation. You know, it could be any number of things that we could be talking about, but when we talk about the name and judicial proclamation, just bringing it back to the point of the day, what we call ourselves, what we answer to, is what people are going to go by. All right? Legally, that means that if you answer to the name or call yourself to the name, like Dred Scott, of someone from Europe, say an Englishman, and you don't seem to be socially constructed by what connotatively people would call an Englishman, then by law you are acting fraudulently in dealing with the court. And when you go to the Dred Scott decision, it talks about that in detail, right? And we're gonna look at lesson book number 5 actually, because I just wanted to reiterate some things about the Dred Scott decision, because at the end of the day, we have to realize that we are, free white persons. Now, when I was talking about status and everything, political status, I just want to put this on the record. Political status has been, because when you talk about the judicial proclamation, realize that judicial proclamation, it has to do with your political status, not just your social or say quote unquote religious status. It has to do with politics. And we know politics are what help run the planet. That's part of the engine that runs the planet, are the politics of things. Islam. And this is just understanding the science of government at the end of the day. Political status has been, and this is page 28, chapter 4, right? Coming out of lesson book number 5, which again you can get from rvbaypublications.com, or you can find it, you can find RVBay via morrisdirectory.com. Political status has been a topic that has been vaguely addressed in the study of jurisprudence. Yet it is the first issue at law that must be addressed or considered nationally and internationally. We have scholars of jurisprudence not addressing the profound importance that political status plays in national and international law. And I wonder why. Because they can't make more money off of you. Once you start collecting and organizing as a body politic, it kind of becomes harder and harder to run people ragged, so to speak. So why have they not addressed the corporate status of the Moors, now labeled black, Negro, colored, Afro, etc., and the legal significance these slave brands have in the national and international law? A careful examination of political status will give the Moors who bear these brand names the understanding of the importance of nationality and the danger at law, quote unquote, of using the chattel brands as identities. Political status is the categorization of citizenship, non-citizenship, social position, or rank in a society with direct effect in relationship to the rights, immunities, and privileges, right? So we know what rights are, right? We're going to look at immunities and privileges in a second. It is the first issue at law that must be addressed or considered nationally and internationally. The following categories determine the status of the people / person of what laws apply in society. Right? So then you got the 7 statuses, status categories. You got 1, nobility / sovereign / free white people. Number 2, free foreign national. Number 3, foreign subject. Number 4, resident alien. Right? And then number 5 and number 6, y'all already know. So when talking about immunities and privileges, right, realize that these rights, immunities, and privileges, again, going back to our other word of the day, are inherent. They're given with the proclamation, declaration of the nationality. All right? So immunities, so meaning that they all go hand in hand. You really cannot have one without the other. You cannot have nationality without recognizing the rights that are associated with that, and those immunities and those privileges associated with that. But if you don't know what they are and you don't exercise those rights, immunities, and privileges, then they do not exist. And there's case law in Latin on that to back it up for all those who know. But immunities. So while I'm looking this up, I want to open the floor up for questions for everybody that's in the room, and I'm gonna turn everybody can open their mic up if you want to while I'm looking these words up, and we're gonna start winding down here in a minute. But I just wanted to get some stuff on the record, kind of touch some things, and then drop it like it's hot, so to speak, and pick up where we left off next week. I'm still looking for this word, immunities. Keep going past it. So from here, like I said, we wanted to make sure you guys had an understanding of why you have, you do the judicial name proclamation, why you do those writs, why you fill them out. Imminent, here we go. Immunity, all right. So an immunity is an exemption as from serving in an office or performing duties which the law generally requires other citizens to perform. The term aptly describes an exemption from taxation. So immunity directly could aptly describe an exemption from taxation, right? So why are we non-obligated? Because we're exempted, right? I'm out the room. So we're exempted, okay? When you talk about a particular privilege, that could also be an immunity, right? And then, so that's immunity. So when it talks about exemption, be exempt from something means you're held away, or you're not, that doesn't really apply to you. So let's look at exemption right quick, just because we can, and then we'll get into privileges, because people like to throw out these, they want to throw out immunities and privileges and try to claim and do that, but they have no true allegiance to the nation. Right? They don't have a true understanding or recognition of what their rights and responsibilities or duties are based on those rights. And when you try to operate half-cocked, you're gonna get piss poor results, man. Every time. And not to say that your sincerity, won't get you by, but if you don't have, the facts, then you're always going to end up going left, or being left out of the mix. And then you look up and stuff is going on and you don't know why, and you're looking for everybody else to try to help you or try to tell you what's going on, and they really don't have time to tell you anything because they're too busy trying to figure out how they're going to help themselves out of the situation. You know what I mean? And then it just creates this unnecessary cycle of interdependence, and to the point to where nobody is being dependable. You know what I mean? Everybody's looking to depend on the next person, but nobody's actually being the person that can be depended on. And then those few people who are depended on end up getting burnt out, because they're too busy. They're the only one who's helping anybody. You know what I mean? So, don't come to the table if you're not ready to give something. Okay? Because this, again, ministers, consuls, this is really public work at the end of the day. But exemption, finally found it. Islam. Freedom from a general duty or service. Immunity from a general burden, tax, or charge. Right? A privilege allowed by law to a judgment, and this is kind of getting into the deeper definitions or the etymon of it. So it could mean these various things based on the different case law. Privilege allowed by law to a judgment debtor by which he may hold property to a certain amount or certain classes of property free from all liability to levy and sale or execution of attachment, a right given by law to a debt, retain, right, an exemption, right, contemplating by constitutional provision, forbidding exemption of property from taxation is an exemption from all taxation in any form. Let me read that again. A quote-unquote exemption, so this is one of the definitions of exemption, contemplated by constitutional provision, forbidding exemption of property from taxation is an exemption from all taxation in any form. An exemption from inheritance taxes is a deduction, quote-unquote, and then it says as applied to taxation, exemption is freedom from burden of enforced contributions to expenses and maintenance of government. So when you're exempted, or when you have an immunity to not be taxed, Islam, then, you know, especially when it comes to your property or your real property, then that means across the board you're free from having to pay for the maintenance of government, especially when that government doesn't represent you, Islam. And that's why we as Moors, and the way the Prophet set it up, you would pay your dues to the temple, and that along with your dues card would help go to, you know, suffice for your payment of taxes to your government. Statement duly affirmed, right? So, for the record, let's go through. Let me back up and ask, because I need to check, make sure I'm gonna stay on top of the room today. Are there any questions so far about the writ? Islam, brother. As you make it back, I'm gonna mute your audio out. But just open up the floor right quick. Are there any questions so far about the name declaration? Because I know we didn't go too deep into it, but I want to make sure I hit everything that you guys might have. If so, let me know in the chat, and I'll just check back. But let's get back into it. So nothing in the chat right here. All right. So because I'm not trying to read the whole thing to you guys, you know, I'm trusting you guys to read, but I just wanted to hit, you know, some things of importance. So where it talks about, of course, the Moorish Divine National Movement, you know, that was established first by the Prophet and then the temples, okay? And we know that partly because it's historical record, but, you know, of course, you could always, I'm trying to see if it's in this book. You know, pardon me. Trying to see if it's in here. No, I don't think it's in this one. I was just looking at it. Anyway, so you guys who study, you can go through and get the timeline and check that out on your own. But I want to make sure, like I said, certain words are understood, and I know I didn't give everybody everything in terms of the language to go over, but I'm going to hit those words first. Let me bring it back out. I'm going to hit the words first that I assigned for the homework, just to stay clear. All right. So for the homework, I assigned in full life, in purpose persona, and sui juris. So first we'll look up in full life, right? Because you guys, y'all can read that writ for yourself. Y'all heard it a million times. Islam, brother, I'm gonna go and mute you out, and if you would just close your video for right now until we open the floor, just to save the bandwidth. Islam.
Okay, I can. It's an option to close it. Yeah,
it should be like a little video button. Or rather, before I do that, let me read this intro to kind of just clear up any confusion from last class as far as like what's going on. So, although the prohibition of America's plantation slavery remains in force, the descendants of those who suffered the lash still, nevertheless, with over 5 decades having elapsed, still endure the daily pains of state-sanctioned, bureaucratized racism, masquerading as capitalism. America's continuing, which of course we know that this is America's continuing legacy, all right, here in Al-Marak. But going forward, the intent of this treatment is simply to articulate the nature and or factual constitution of our society's present-day socialized racism and delineate the varying forms of our current cycles, micro and macro pathologies impacting on our society, while delineating with specificity the unjust individual's burden as well as our collective resulting negative consequence, i.e., disparaging conditions effectuated upon the masses by a privileged minority, morally bankrupt decision makers differentiated often only by race and their pathologies of psychosocial proclivities in the form of erroneous class destinations. So when we're talking about classism and quote-unquote racism in America, we're really talking about the disparity that is caused from a lack of birthright nationality, right? And a lack of understanding of birthright nationality. To the point that the very means of society, the very things that the society functions off of, that allows it to grow, have been stripped, from a people. When you're talking about their nationality and their birthright, the thing that allows them to be able to navigate upon this earthly plane, and still be able to, find agreement with their fellow man, again, has been stripped away from them. So when we look at the social conditions of what we see today in terms of quote-unquote black people, in Al-Marak, you're looking at the result of these, focus and guided efforts, to deny a particular people of their, again, nationality and birthrights. So when we talk about the name declaration and the judicial proclamation, these are functional tools, okay? Peace, peace. What's your appellation? Sorry? Bradley. All right. Islam, brother. Islam. You been keeping up with the classes at all?
I was my first class was the last one. I was the one that was asking you about what this class was going to be about.
Okay. Cool. So we right on time. So you probably so you got that much. Let me turn this music off for now, so we're gonna get started. So yeah, thank you guys. For those who already know, make sure you turn off your mic and your video so that we can try to save the bandwidth and everything and keep everything moving smooth. Islam. But this is the Friday class. This is September 2nd, 2016, Christian calendar year. So for the record, we're just going to get started. All right. So again, I'm New Najee. This is, at themoors.com. Like I said, we, for housekeeping purposes, like to do this each and every Friday. Trying, to make it a more inviting environment for those who are just coming in, to allow everybody to kind of get on the same page, like I've said before. So today we're supposed to be going over the name and judicial proclamations, which can be found, copies of which can be found on rvbaypublications.com, and other places such as Moorish Public Records, so on and so forth, as well as moorishdirectory.com. But I'm going to go to RVBay right quick and just download a quick copy so I can look at the same version that you guys should have. And if you were following us from previous classes, you guys should already be linked in with Active Moors and everything, and you'll see the homework in the reference section or under the brainstorm tab, and that would give you that information so that you can stay abreast of everything, going forward. Welcome. So we got new people coming in. So yeah, just say the bandwidth. If you would just cut your mic and your camera off for me, brother. That'll keep everything smooth. All right. All right, he just jumped back out. I guess you know how to fix it. All right, so I guess some people get intimidated. Anyway, so the legal name declaration. Let me pull this up so y'all can see. Time again, you know what I mean? And they still hold true today in 2016. So without further ado, let me share the screen and jump right into it with you guys. So we can get into this. So the name, Judicial Proclamation. So right here, at the top, you're gonna see it's talking about it's got these three symbols here. Now one of these we should recognize. You know what I mean? This quote unquote American flag, which is really the banner of amity and commerce, right? And then you've got the press grip right here, which is supposed to, you know, represent unity, or it could, you know, have some allusion to masonry, depending on where you're coming from. And then, of course, the Moroccan flag, you know, which is a national flag. And this flag, of course, in some records say 10,000, but the others say 50,000 if you hit the 102s, you know, really hard. 50,000 years over in this land, all right? So these are just the things that kind of set up the four corners of the document, all right? And that beeping in the background is people coming in and out of the room. So we'll just bear with that. But I wanted to hit on a couple of things. So when it talks about the free national name, realize that would be your quote-unquote appellation. Of course, your straw name would be the ens legis, right, that was given to you at birth and whatnot. Typically, these ens legises are tags and labels and brands like Smith, Jones, and Johnson, you know, associated with them. And they're often classed as family names. But we publicly deal with them as corporate instruments, not as living individuals. So when you're putting that in there, you know, you want to make sure that that's legible and that's, you know, matching everything that you know is associated with that. But as far as your free national name, that you know, and it's a lot of people ask, you know, how do you come up with that? How do you, you know, get to that point? I recommend that people meditate, you know what I mean, and really start studying and going into themselves. But sometimes, you know, you can start with the name, like you said, that you've been given. And in that, if you can trace it back to something more in line with your culture and heritage, then maybe you can, you know, vibe with that or be in tune with that. But at the end of the day, it's really about where your spirit is, you know, ends up settling on. You know, nobody can tell you who you are at the end of the day. Like that's why you're, you know, making this in reclaiming one's nationality and birthright and effectuating and making it clear for the record, you know, what your position is, just in layman's terms. On, you know, with the understanding of your birthright and nationality. And please believe, you know, what we go through today is not something that you're gonna get in just watching this one time or, you know, just reading it one time. Like, you're gonna have to go through it, you know, a few times and go over the words a few times before you really, you know, can grasp what it is that it's talking about oftentimes. Unless, you know, you're already familiar with the vocabulary or the verbiage, you know, and you've already dealt with these types of things, which, of course, we know most doctors, most lawyers, most of those, your politicians, your preachers and teachers, so to speak, in the quote unquote black community, they already know this information. You know what I mean? It's a part of their cursory training. You know, and because there's always this unspoken, you know, level or degree of understanding that comes with being quote unquote conscious or aware, to where, you know, you've got those who are well aware and are, you know, well versed in certain orders, and they're directly associated with their own, you know, private privy council. And, you know, these various privy councils are at the end of the day where they go to. It's the the well of knowledge and information that they go to be able to stay abreast of the different current situations and whatnot at the quote unquote round table, right? So that's why we as Moors make a concerted effort to allow others to know who may not know that you can organize, you can work, towards a common goal and an effort and not be criminalized at the end of the day. Because I think oftentimes when I interact with people that there's a sense of fear that comes with knowing this information and applying it that like the prophet said, he'll lead you all the way up to salvation and you'll turn around, so to speak. So, I just wanted to set that context before we really got into the name of Judicial Proclamation, to just put it out there and let everybody know, hey, these documents have been in force and in effect forever. The information that's in there is solid. We're talking about facts at the end of the day that have been used time and time.